All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into something you shared with us. A list of 13 thoughts for anyone in their 20s or 30s who's dealing with anxiety.
Yeah.
We're basically going to try and create like an anxiety cheat sheet for you from this list.
Right.
And one thing that's really interesting is that a lot of this isn't about fighting anxiety head on,
Mhm.
but it's more about changing your mindset
Yeah,
and the way you interact with the world around you.
absolutely. And I think it's about building a foundation
Hmm.
and a different sort of way of interacting with the world that, yeah,
Yeah.
sort of helps equip you with the tools you need to better deal with anxieties when they come up.
Yeah.
For example, the first thought on this list is that, the unknown breeds anxiety,
Hmm.
and their advice is to seek knowledge, which I think really resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you're anxious about something unfamiliar, whether it's like a medical procedure or, some kind of social situation or whatever it is,
Yeah.
if you could dig into the details of that thing, it can kind of take the edge off that fear.
Yeah.
It's almost like uncertainty is fuel for anxiety,
Yeah.
and information is a way to cut off the supply.
Exactly. It's like that feeling of, okay, I understand this a little bit better now, and that makes me feel a little bit better.
Right.
Another point that I thought was really interesting was, the pressure of external expectations leading to burnout. And the antidote that's offered here is self-love and setting boundaries.
Yeah.
How does that sort of proactively manage anxiety?
Well, if we connect those 2 points, think about how much anxiety comes from the feeling that you're constantly falling short of some external benchmark. Maybe it's a societal expectation. Maybe it's pressure from your family or whatever. But self-love in this context is really about grounding yourself in your own values and your own pace of doing things and accepting that pace. And boundaries are kind of the practical application of that. They protect your energy
Yeah.
and your time, and they help to prevent that feeling of being overwhelmed, which is, kind of like fuel on the fire of anxiety.
Totally, totally. Now, instead of fighting problems, this source suggests that we ride the wave and even find some enjoyment in problem solving.
Yeah.
That feels like a real mindset shift.
I think it is. And what I find really fascinating about that is the energy that it saves you. Resistance is exhausting.
Yeah.
And a lot of times resistance just amplifies the anxiety that we feel.
Mm,
But if you can adapt to the situation and focus on finding solutions,
yeah,
you're moving into a more empowered state.
right.
You're not ignoring the difficulty of the situation, but you're engaging with it constructively.
And it's interesting how these points connect because that sense of empowerment, probably gets a boost from the next idea, seeking external perspectives.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we get so stuck in our own heads that a different viewpoint can be such a game changer for anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, anxiety can really create these tight loops of thought in our minds. And just talking things through with someone you trust, someone outside of that loop, can really break those cycles and offer like alternative interpretations or solutions that you hadn't even considered. It's almost like getting a fresh pair of eyes on the problem.
Yeah, so true. The list then suggests that internal change is often the key to shifting an anxiety-inducing environment. And that's about taking agency even when it feels like the external factors are kind of the main cause.
Yeah. And what I find really powerful about that is that it puts the focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like a victim of your circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
you're empowered to actually make changes
Yeah.
in your own behavior and your own responses, which ultimately can kind of ripple outwards and change your environment.
Then we get to the very straightforward advice, which is to exercise regularly for both physical and mental refreshment. It's almost a cliche at this point,
Yeah.
but it's on the list for a reason.
Oh, for sure. The physiological benefits of exercise are undeniable
Yeah.
in managing stress and anxiety. And it's just like this tangible action that you can take that has a direct impact on how you feel.
And speaking of things you can control, another key point is the value of open-mindedness. Being receptive to different viewpoints can lead to better problem solving. It can lead to more confidence. How does that tie into anxiety?
Well, I think anxiety can sometimes make us cling very rigidly to our own perspectives, almost like we're afraid of anything that's different. Open-mindedness fosters flexibility.
Mm.
And it reduces that fear of the unexpected,
Mhm.
which is, a core component of a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. And then this is interesting. Consistency is highlighted as being crucial. Addressing anxiety is an ongoing effort.
Mm-hmm.
That sets a realistic expectation, right?
It does. And it really is about recognizing that managing anxiety is no one-time fix. It's a continuous process of self-care and implementing these strategies over time.
Yeah. Expressing needs,
Yeah.
setting limits, another important piece of the puzzle, and often a source of anxiety in itself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, boundaries are fundamental
Really?
for protecting your mental well-being.
Yeah.
Learning to say no and communicate your needs clearly really reduces the likelihood that you're going to feel overwhelmed and resentful, which are huge anxiety triggers.
Reframing failure as a learning opportunity rather than like a catastrophe seems like a very powerful way to sort of disarm anxiety.
It really is. The fear of failure can be so paralyzing for so many of us. But if you can start to view mistakes as stepping stones,
Yeah.
just part of the process, it really reduces the pressure and allows you to take more risks, which ultimately builds resilience.
Right. And then on a kind of lighter note, this list suggests that you rediscover childhood joys as a way to reduce anxiety.
Yeah, I love that one.
That's kind of an unexpected but welcome thought.
Yeah, it is. And, it really taps into the power of positive memories and simple pleasures. It gives you a mental escape and reminds you of times when maybe anxiety wasn't so prominent in your life.
Right. And finally, the idea of gradual exposure to build confidence in facing fears, the step-by-step approach.
Yeah. This is a very practical technique for desensitizing yourself to things that trigger anxiety. You start small and progressively challenge yourself over time. And, eventually you build mastery, and that reduces the intensity of your anxiety response.
So in essence, these 13 thoughts kind of weave together a picture of proactive self-management with an emphasis on internal shifts and kind of consistent engagement with the world.
Exactly. It's about building a toolkit of internal and external strategies to help you navigate anxiety more effectively.
So thinking about all these points, what's one small thing that you, our listener, could experiment with this week? Maybe it's seeking a little bit more information about something that's been making you uneasy. Or perhaps it's setting one small boundary to kind of protect your time and energy. It's all about taking that first step towards a different experience.
Right.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.